All right, Shawn. I just want to pick it up off last time that we talked. You said you don't really like the name social media influencer. I just wanted to know why you don't like being called that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we do a lot of things in life, and sometimes we don't want to be noticed or known for that one thing that we do. Because somebody might be in real estate, but they also they do charitable acts, or they like to skateboard. Maybe they're a skateboard kid, but there's a lot of things that we do that we just don't want to be known for that one thing.
I mean, so what are some of the things that you want to be known for besides being a social media influencer? Is there anything that you would rather be known for, or is it just like you would rather be just dibble and dabble in everything?
Absolutely. I mean, that's a great question. I'd have to say that I would want to be known for many things. Probably a couple of them is just known for helping others. I think we all have this innate desire in life to help other people in some way. And by doing that, they kind of determine of who we are. Right? You have all these
Hmm.
names. You see, if you look up, let's say Kanye West, he's an artist, right? He's a musician. He, he's a philanthropist in some way. He has many titles, but a lot of those were given to him, not necessarily taken. And that's something that, as you get older and you identify yourself, you find your identity, you kind of realize that, there's a lot of things that you can be. You don't have to be known as just one.
And it's funny that you say that because, like, if you're talking about Kanye West, he kind of started as a person who just did beats, and then now he's a pronoun rapper, and it's kind of like you don't have to be stuck with what you do now, but it's kind of like if you want to do something, pursue it and just try to do it. And I kind of want to go back and talk about your stories there. I just want to see how you came from, your real estate background to, being a social media influencer and actually helping people out on through social media.
Yeah, absolutely. So going back to what you said, the identity thing, like at first I was doing the real estate, I was doing real estate. And the reason why I was doing these videos, I had not many reasons. So I was doing them mostly for the real estate business, just to get exposure, kind of learn things, teach other people. And I realized there are 1,000 other people out there that do that, right? So you're essentially all providing the same kind of value, which is great, right? The more the merrier. But again, I realized that that's not what I want to be known for, the real estate guy. Real estate is something I want to be in. It's not something I want to be known for. And that being said, that's where I kind of switched the direction of where I, kind of videos that I put out. So that being said, it's like I had a few reasons why I was making videos, and now I feel like I have a lot of them. And part of the reason that I do it now is I want to help people, obviously, and all the positive feedback that I've received. So that being said, everything is subject to change, and you never know. The videos can change throughout time, but I think overall, the message behind each video has been pretty consistent.
Yeah. So, and that you used to do basketball back in the day. So, do you ever wish you kind of did that now? Now that you are kind of a adult and you kind of changed your lifestyle, and I know you kind of went to college for it. So, do you ever wish you kind of played basketball?
Yeah, I still try to play basketball now, and it's funny that, I look at people a little bit younger than me, and I kind of wish I was in a position because we always look at the past as something that was glory, like glorified. We always glorify the past. I look back and I think about all the things I could have done in basketball because when I did play college basketball, I didn't have the experience that I wanted. I wish I had more, and I look back and, before I was kind of upset that that happened, but now I realize like all those things that I felt that I left on the court are driving me today. So in a sense, I wish I was playing basketball because the whole mindset behind basketball has driven me to where I'm at now. But then again, I wouldn't want to change anything that's happening to me right now at this moment.
Do you think that people should cuz yeah, it's funny that you say that cuz it's like do you think that people should mourn for the stuff that happened in the past, or do you feel like they should just go and think about the future? Cuz I know a lot of people, even myself including, it's like we say, oh, coulda, woulda, shoulda, or I shoulda did this. Do you feel like people should mourn on the past or just, have a blank space for the future?
Like I said, I think the past is something we can look at with a nostalgic feeling. I think it's always good to look at the past and, for example, say if you were to, you want to know, let's say if you want to be a basketball player, going back to that example,
Mhm,
you've never played basketball before and you're 20 years old and you want to start today. A kid actually came up to me on the court when I was playing the other day and said this to me, like, where do I start? And what I told him is, all right, first thing you have to learn is the fundamentals of the game because you can't be Kyrie Irving dribbling in and out of people, on the second
mhm.
day or the second week that you play basketball. I told him, what I told him is go back and watch videos of Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant was one of the greatest basketball players of all time, if not the greatest basketball player of all time. Very arguable. However, one thing that Kobe Bryant is known for is his insane footwork. He's really good at what he does because he sticks to the fundamentals. So when we look back at the past, I think we get the foundation of things. And I think that's where we kind of use the foundation of what we learned and take that and progress forward. So, the reason why a lot of players, are really good at basketball now, on top of, the training and, knowing the diet, it's like learning more about how to take care of your body. It's also the fact that people in the past have laid down the foundation. And that's why you have players today who idolize Kobe Bryant, who idolize Michael Jordan, who idolize Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, because they're the ones that showed them the path of how to be great. So I
It
think the past is, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, you can go. So I mean, you talk about how we all kind of look up to the greats and everything. So, from my perspective and being young, do you feel like that? Do you think that we should kind of, or what would you say that like our best bet to like do when we're younger to help us in our careers for like later aspect? Because I know we kind of look up to other people. So, are should we kind of like when we're younger, should we kind of look up to the people that's up there and kind of do what they do, or like what would you say like is the best bet for us as we're younger? Do we should we
Yeah,
start like
absolutely.
side hustles or anything?
Well, when you're young, it's kind of hard to understand what you really want to do. And I think that goes for people in their 20s and 30s and 40s as well. It's like the entire life you're trying to figure it out. And I think the best thing that's worked for me, at least, is find things that I like and find people that do those things really well
Hmm.
and watch them do it and learn from them. And then you kind of, from there, you branch off and you kind of figure out, like, okay, I like this, but I don't like this facet of that thing. And then from there, you kind of fine tune of figuring out what you want to do and how to get really good at it is kind of indulging in it in every way. So let's say you like business, for example, right? You think of businessmen, you think of like, let's say like, you know,
We'll do
I mean, there's
shoes.
plenty of them.
We could do
I'm sorry,
shoes.
shoes. Let's say you want to have the freshest kicks, right? Um, where do you start from there? It's like, okay, when I was younger, at least, when I was younger, what I would do is I would flip shoes. So me and my friends would all like, we love shoes. We love Jordans. We have like Nikes, but Jordans were like the thing when I was growing up. And what we would do is we'd, wait for the shoes to come out, wait a couple weeks, pick them up a little bit below retail if they're worn slightly, and then, you know, buy them, wearing the school. And wearing the school is kind of like your marketing scheme. It's like you wear the fresh fit and then with the shoes, and that's like your whole marketing campaign right there because people look at the clothing and they're like, wow, you got a fresh fit on. But then like they notice the shoes and the shoes like the cherry on top. So then like you take, like that interest that you have and those people will essentially like, I'll buy those shoes off you or I'll trade you. And then you kind of get a deal from them. So going back to your question with, trying to find a side hustle, it's difficult. You have to like try a bunch of things as you grow up. And like I said, the one thing I tried was flipping shoes. I found shoes below, retail value and essentially resold them for, 50% above what I bought them for or 50% above retail. So that's just one thing, like reselling shoes. Because you think about it, you go to school, a lot of people, at a young age really care about, the material items of like what we wear, right?
Mhm.
So that's one thing. A lot of things you can do labor too, like mow lawns. When I was younger, me and my friends used to go around and try to mow lawns, or we'd sell candy in school. Like there's plenty of little side hustles you can do, and it's not going to make you rich, but it'll give you a little cash in your pocket, and it'll kind of give you the foundation of how to be a businessman. Speaking of which, like if you want to learn how to be like Warren Buffett, somebody who's essentially like a sales guy. Everybody thinks he's a really great investor, but essentially he's a sales guy. He sells you the idea that you should invest with him. And that's the reason why people do it, because, he's built that foundation, and therefore. So if like you want to sales skills, you listen to Warren Buffett. So there are plenty of opportunities, in short, that will give you the foundation for real skills. That's all really side hustles are. Like, you build them up and you essentially delegate them to other people.
So do you think as when we're younger, do you feel like that's the only kind of way we can get successful, or do you think that the education system is still what it is now, where you go to college and everything, and then you kind of get a job? Do you feel like that more people should try to have a business of them for themselves, or should you think that people should just go down the 4 years of college and just graduate and then get a job after that?
Absolutely. So let me ask you a question. Do you think school teaches you how to pay bills?
No,
Do you think school teaches you how to pay taxes?
no.
Right. See, there's a lot of things that you don't learn in school, but that doesn't mean school is necessarily bad. I would have to say that school is really good. That it gives you that foundational knowledge to go do those things. But in terms of if you want to make money, you do not have to go to school. And I've learned that from obviously going through the whole process of going to school. There are things that you do have to go to school for. Like if you want to go to med school, if you want to be an attorney, if you want to do those kind of trades, you have to go to school because there are technical skills that you learn in those schools that are very valuable. But in terms of do you have to go to school to become a businessman? I don't believe so. I not even just from my own perspective, but just from my own experience, but from other people who've said it. For example, like Patrick Bet David, he's part owner of the Yankees. He's an entrepreneur. I really like him. He always talks about, he never went to school. He was selling gym memberships before, like to build his uh, foundational knowledge of sale or business. So just really quick, his story is that, he's from, I believe, Syria, and he grew up poor. He came here, and he was trying to find himself. He was young, and he didn't end up going to college, but what he did was he got a job working at a gym. And for the longest time, he wanted to be in LA, and he wanted to be an actor and had all these big dreams, but he had to sit with the realities. Like he had to build those foundational skills beforehand. Um, but eventually, obviously, he runs his own business. He's a very successful guy, and he's a great teacher of business in general. So you don't and he never went to school, so it's like you don't have to go to school to kind of learn. um, you don't have to go to school to learn those things. Some things you just learn inevitably.
So, do you think like perspective and learning things that about the mind and psychology, do you think people could learn that in school, or because I feel like when it comes to other people, so many people, they have problems with like mental health and anxiety and depression. How do you think people could learn about that stuff? And not even dealing about business. This is kind of just like a personal question.
Yeah,
Is there it okay.
yeah, absolutely. I think I believe there's one thing that we fail to admit sometimes, and that is that we all experience these things, and if we didn't, we would not be human. So inevitably, at some point in your life, in my life at least too, you're going to experience some form of anxiety, depression, or some self-doubt, right? You're going to get to a low point. But I truly believe in this, that those negative feelings inputted into the right outlet can produce the greatest output you can imagine. So in other words, a reason why, a lot of people go to the gym is because say their girlfriend or their boyfriend broke up with them, and it
Hmm.
was because of the way they looked. And what they did was they got a gym membership and they went to the gym and they started working out for like the next 5 years. And then now they look amazing. Right? That did not come from a positive feeling. That did not come from happiness or joy. They probably learned to enjoy the gym on the way. However, it all came from it all came from those negative emotions, those experiences. So I, the best thing I've learned to do is embrace those feelings of negativity and doubt and anxiety and depression, because at your lowest point, you have nothing to lose. All you can do is go up. And
Hmm.
like, what else do you have to lose?
I mean, even when it comes to when you talk about business and you have to go from the negative, do you feel like that people can become successful when it comes to the positive things? So like some people never had that bad thing that happened in their life. Like some people don't have I mean they have a perfect girlfriend, they have a perfect boyfriend for themselves. So how do those people have the same kind of chances or outcomes to become successful?
Yeah, I think they have different lessons to learn, or they have different experiences to go through in order to achieve that success. I think everybody does. But you think about it too, as you get older, say if you want a family, right? What really drives you at the end of the day is providing for your family. And that's where I think it applies to those people who have never experienced anything bad. Maybe they do have a lot of good things going for them, and what they use is, maybe it's fear that they cannot provide for their family. But inevitably the positive emotion is their family itself. It's like they have so much love, and they have this care for their family that they want to do everything to keep them intact. So essentially what's driving them, I believe, is fear. It's not necessarily, it's a positive thing, I would have to say, but it would have to be fear for me. um the positive emotions that they experience are ultimately the ones that drive them.
This is just kind of a side question now that we're talking about it. Do you believe in the word happy? I know it's kind of a simple question, but it's I feel like some people feel that the word happy is kind of like a just a feeling, and that like kind of most people don't use that word, and more people feel that they feel like the negative part more than the positive part, and so people don't really believe in the word happy, and that people can be truly happy, or money doesn't bring happiness. So do you believe in the word happiness?
Absolutely. I think there are things that make you happy. For example, some people like quality time. Think about like the love languages. You have a couple love languages. You have, acts of service. You have acts of service. You have quality time. You have gifts. You have those kind of things. A lot of those things that make you happy, right? We all have guilty pleasures at the end of the day. Like mine is ice cream. Every single night I eat ice cream, and I tell my girlfriend that it's like we have to go get ice cream or I'm gonna throw a fit. Not actually, but I think we all have things that make us happy, and I think the notion that we have sometimes is that we always have to be happy. But going back to the last point is that we don't have to be happy all the time, because the things that don't make us happy actually drive us to be happy.
That's
So
true.
we don't we don't always have to be happy. It's okay to feel how you feel. It's just how you react to those feelings.
But I mean, when I talk to people, and so it's like some people who don't feel happy most of the time, and they feel like they're always in ruts, and they always are negative, and there's always negative something happen. How do you tell them that there's always going to be a happy part, and that sometimes that negative part is going to get you that happy part? Because I feel like the people that have the negative things, they don't really think about, oh well, my life is always going to be negative. They always think negative, and so how do you get those people to see the other side?
I would ask the question, like, how do you want to live your life? How do you want to, like, where do you see yourself in I know that's the most cliche question, but where do you see yourself? Like, do you want to be in the position that you are at now in this circumstance where you're feeling like this, or would you rather feel something else? Um, that that's the thing that at least drives me the most. And going back to like other people, it's more so like you have to figure out where they can put. It's not. It's. I think it's. Look at this. Emotion is like a ball of energy. You think about it. Emotion's a ball of energy, and where you put it essentially is where your focus goes. And if you put it in the place that drives you to do good things or do good for yourself, eventually you could feel that happiness. The part that stumps people who are not happy is that they don't know where to put that emotion or that ball of energy. Therefore, they think they're hopeless. But that's why, going back to what we talked earlier, we have to find, what drives us, or you know, what we have interest in. So say if I wasn't happy, but I had interest in golfing, but I was like, I'm never going to be good at golf. But if I went on the golf course one day, let's say I got mad and just kept hitting golf balls as hard as I can, I'm probably going to hit a couple that are good. Then I'll have that epiphany. I'm like, wow, I just hit that ball pretty far. So that's the thing that kind of reinforces you to go back, just initially trying. I think the thing that we don't do, we tend not to do the first 20 minutes of, we tend not to do the first steps of things. And that's why we don't get to where we want to be. So, in terms of happiness.
So do you feel like, because I feel like some of the people pleasers are always trying to get the people who feel like that negative is like kind of always negative. And so um trying to go from there, how do you get, I mean, if we talk about it, how do you get those negative people to um how do I word this? Um uh, so I'm just gonna switch it. Um so I kind of want to go from to some of your quotes that you talk about, which are I feel like are very important for everybody to know. And I kind of just some of them are just questions, and then some are just a quote. So you said in one of your posts, I was doing dishes the other day and thought to myself, why am I doing this? I come to like doing dishes, but it's such a mundane task. I begin to wonder, why do we even work in the first place? Most of us want to find our passion, what drives us every day. And we need money to do the things we really enjoy. What drives you?
It's a great question. What drives me? I think, I've always been a firm believer in that once you start something, if it's going well, or if there is a positive outlook, you should keep going. And if you quit, there's no end to it. Like I actually recently talked about like patience. Like we tend to have like this short frame of time in our mind, like a beginning and an end, when we start and then where we should be at a certain point. In reality, it's like where you start and there's no telling where you should be in the end. So it's more of, for me, I'm driven by those negative emotions. I have to say, I'm driven by the fear of failure, as a lot of people are too. Like we're all, I think to some degree, we're all driven by fear, and fear of what depends on who you are. For me, what drives me is the fear of failing. The fear of failing, or the fear of not getting to where I want to be. It's because I'm impatient. And one of the lessons I've had to learn, growing up, is to be patient, to not put a time on things. Because you think about it too, that's kind of this, in a sense, like you have to respect the people that have laid that foundation out for you, because it's taken them time too. And just because they laid out the foundation doesn't mean it's gonna, the process for me is gonna expedite any quicker. So for example, let's say I played basketball and I grew up watching Kobe Bryant. Um, if I thought I was going to go to the NBA at 21 and eventually I got there at 26, when I was at 20 years old and I was like, there's no chance I'm going to make it, and I gave up right there, that's like kind of disrespectful to all the undrafted players who, had to work their butt. They had to go through the G League, they're undrafted. They had to like find an agent. They had to like sleep in their own car. It's like, you have to realize that there is no timetable for you. And the biggest killer is comparison. But you can compare yourself like to where you want to be, and you can measure it by looking at other people who have done it already.
And then, I mean, even when I talk about my mom, it's like there's more successful people at the age 60. So the average millionaire becomes um, a millionaire when they're 60. And so it's like Why try to get it when you're 20? Why try to get it when you're 30? You're fine. Find out what you want to do, and then slowly it will come to you. Why do you have to be so impatient? And kind of with that, with your videos, do you feel that you can help everyone?
No, I know for a fact I cannot help everyone. I know that what I say, people might disagree and it might not be of value to them. And that's fine. That's okay. There's nothing I can do about that. However, what I can do is do my greatest to impact those who do want to listen, like that do want to lend an ear. The reason why I do it, going back to it, is that I want to give everything of value that I wish I knew before. Who Anybody who's younger than me, older than me, same age, doesn't matter. I want to be of value to them because when I was your age, Corey, I wish I knew a lot of things that you knew now. Like I said, you can't compare yourself to other people in that sense, but I would rather know that I died giving to somebody than taking.
I think more people kind of think of the opposite, where they try to take, but never want to give. And I feel like, especially with the society that we're living in, is that more people are not trying to help the person next to them. They're kind of the opposite, where they kind of think in their own mind and think to themselves, and they're always not trying to help the person. Is there any way that we could try to get those people to be able to talk to the person next to them and help the person next to them?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, that's another lesson that other people have to learn is that, your ultimate, like your value, your self-worth, and this is in the five laws. This is in the Go-Giver, one of my favorite books, and it's by Bob Berg, and he talks about how your value is how much more you give than what you take in service. How much more you give in value than you take in payment. Excuse me. So if, let's say, for in his book, like the guy, for example, like one of the guys in the book, he's talking about how he tends to ask people for leads. He's a sales guy, but he asks people for leads, or he asks them to sell their house. But at the end of the day, it's like, why would, say if I called you up, I didn't know you, Corey, and I'm like, hey, sell me your house, right? Were you more likely to me sell your house unless like I tell you like, hey, my name is Shawn. I want to, I know you're in the neighborhood. I want to, let you know how much your property is worth. I want to like just give you that free information because a lot of people don't know these things. And giving value is just essentially giving value is a piece of information that essentially, people don't have, like a small piece of information that people don't have. And that goes a long way. So in order for, those people kind of have to realize if you want to grow as a human, you can't kind of be a hoarder. Like think about people who hoard stuff. It's like it's stuck in a house and it's hard to maneuver, right? You tend not to have like much room. But the more you give, it's like your house is a little bit emptier. You throw out trash, like you can move throughout the house.
And that's so great that you said that, because it's like, even with that, people also try to feel like they know everything, and that kind of gets to the second quote, where Phil McKinney says, "And crafting good questions is precisely what allows people to make imaginative leaps. The challenge is that, as adults, we lose our curiosity over time. We get into ruts, we become experts in our own field or endeavors. You say, as a kid, I believed I knew everything. Now, as an adult, I know that I know nothing. How do you keep that curiosity mindset and always willing to ask questions?"
Yeah, that's a great question. So I actually stole that quote. It's a very famous quote from Seneca. He says that all I know is that I know nothing. Seneca is a Stoic guy, but I guess the reason why I ask questions is because I know I don't have all the answers yet, and I'm curious because I know there's more to life than what there is on the surface, and you see this every day. Some people are comfortable living the life that they have and the knowledge that they're provided, but I know at the end of the day, like the most fulfilling thing that I can take from life and also give is knowing that there is more. And whether that be me giving more, right, by learning more, or me taking more like knowledge in. So I know that, we are not, we don't have to be confined to going to a 9 to 5 job every day, going to college, etc. That's just my mindset. I don't push that on anybody. There's nothing that you should take from me or nothing that you should do that I'm saying. But for me, I stay curious because I know there's more. Like you see, for example, there's a 1% for a reason. And not many people question like why there is a 1%. It's like a lot of people don't question like why they're here on earth. I think I wake up every day knowing that I can die tomorrow. So it's like I want to question like, why am I here? Right? What is my purpose? So I guess by me asking those questions and staying curious, I'm always trying to figure out why things are the way they are. I want to know. Like everybody has, a point of curiosity. They have some degree of curiosity that we all want to, I guess, figure out, whether that be their identity or how to do a certain task or a certain skill. But at the end of the day, it's like I know that, you know, uh, 25 is a very young age, and I also know that life could be over in the next 5 minutes. So it's like more of getting the most out of life while I got it.
And it kind of remembered me of a time when I was talking to somebody, and it's like some people do get stuck in the my what I say is always right, and that whatever you say, you can do whatever. And it's like, why do you think more people get stuck in my way is right, your way is wrong? And they're not able to listen to you and see your kind of way, because I feel like that kind of deals with if I'm curious, then I'm always willing to learn that there's always another way to anything else. And there's not always the way I'm doing is the way that I'm doing is the fastest way, or the way that I'm doing is the right way. There's always another way, or there's two rights to every wrong, something like that. So is there any way to get those people to change, or is it like, or is it, I feel like is it kind of infined in them? Is there any way to change those people, or is it just kind of have to focus on yourself?
Yeah. Well, we grow up with such a I think we're taught such a scarce mindset. We think that, there are commodities in life and there are more commodities than there are resources, resources that are infinite. So that being said, it's like, for example, money. Like we grew up learning how to save money, and money is something that doesn't come around a lot. But as money it's in abundance if you find it in the right place. So same thing with our morals, our principles, our philosophy. We tend to think one thing is right because we think that there's a scarce amount of answers out there. There's only like a finite amount of things that we can believe in that are true. In reality, a lot of things are up for interpretation too. So going back to what you're saying is that we tend not to believe that there are many answers out there because we were only shown one answer. We were only shown that there's one way to do things. And going back to the curiosity thing, some people don't want to know those things because it could be scared. It could be just like it's not of value to their time. So I guess in order to help other people, you can't really help other people unless they want to help themselves. But in order to show people there are different ways of, thinking, or different ways of, you know, doing things, it's more so you have to present the idea and let it sink in. It's like planting a seed or just planting a tree. Like you have to set the idea and something that goes against what they're what they believe, and then let that seed grow. And eventually they might come back. There are plenty of times I've been in, conversations where people have disagreed with me, and that's okay. Everybody has a different point of view. But by you presenting the idea in the first place, it's like one of those things you can't unsee.
Um, Going to your third quote. You're a big advocate on taking action. Actions are performed to achieve an end goal. You say overconsumption of the how to leads to the not doing. Best thing to do is to go do. Think less and do more. Why do you think more people get stuck on the how to and never start?
I think there's an abundance of information, especially in our age of technology. And even I experience this a lot. We have the internet, we have books, we have Google, we have all our resources at our hands. And especially now with short form video, I think we have so much value coming our way. Thinking about a cup of water, right? you know, water might have been scarce back in the day because we only had so many watering holes or, so many places where we can go get water. But now that I'm able to fill up my own cup, right, I might not be able to stop. I might overfill it, right? I might not pay attention that I'm filling the cup so hot, so much with water. So that being said, I think we have this paralysis because we don't necessarily, we have so much information thrown at us. It's like having different viewpoints. Remember what I said before about, planting the seed. Maybe some people are planting two trees right next to each other and they kind of ingrown and like they split. And then you don't really know what to actually focus on. So I think it's harder to focus today than it probably was 20 years ago because we weren't so stimulated, right? But the disadvantage is that they didn't have, the information to go do these things so quickly. And it kind of gives us a false sense of that we have to complete something at a certain time. Again, that like short time frame. So go ahead.
Oh, so like when we talk about technology, I know it plays a very big part in now our kind of our society. I feel like it's like a good and a bad thing. So like a good thing would be that it's kind of our biggest way of making money. It's kind of showing that there's now more influencers now. There's more people who find out that there's something that they like that they wouldn't have known from social media. And it's our biggest gateway of kind of transforming as a society, but it's kind of our own like our biggest downfall where there's more people who are going in depression, anxiety. There's more people who are getting stuck on what they see, and so they're never kind of starting, and they kind of see that, well, say I want to start at a shoe store, but there's so many people who got shoes on online, then well, I'm not going to start. And it's kind of getting in their own head, or people decide, well, I kind of got this that I like. I got sports. I got this, and so it's like they kind of start so many things that none of them start, and so they kind of get in their own head. And do you feel that more people should, or do you feel like that technology plays a big part in kind of not starting?
I think technology can give us paralysis. Like I said, we tend to be overstimulated with the amount of information that we have, and we tend to overconsume. For example, like during COVID, during 2020, when we had so much time in our hands, a lot of people reverted to TikTok. That's when TikTok blew up. And there's so much information coming their way, it causes these emotions of anxiety, depression, and kind of stagnation. So I think we are overflown with technology sometimes, and I think there's a balance of going to one extreme or the other. It's like there's really no such thing as balance, but it's more so we kind of go to the extreme of overfilling our brain and underfilling our brain. And but going to answer your question, yeah, we do in a sense overflow, overconsume. We overconsume technology, which prevents us from starting in the first place because it creates those feelings of fear, anxiety, depression.
My fourth quote would probably be the best quote that I feel like you had said, and I kind of want you to explain as best as you can, as much as you can. Um, you say lend an ear, not your breath. The key to communication, having power and influence, is to seek first to understand. Why do you think more people think the opposite and speak before when it comes to like friendships or anything or any day to day situations?
So I believe that we tend to think when we're young. See, going back to what I said before is that when we're young, we think we know everything, but as we get older, we realize we know nothing. And as we get older, we search for more answers. And in order for those answers, there's question. We search for more answers, and we seek, people that have those answers. So we go ask. We have the thought of to go ask questions, but instead of us asking questions, we tend to speak more than we listen. So what I always say, lend an ear. Sometimes you got to lend your ear and not your breath, and people provide all the answers that you need.
I feel like when it comes to, say, the workspace, I feel like more people are not even willing to listen, and I feel like, and also kind of comes to where people are not willing to talk also. So is there any way for people to communicate correctly so that way that both kind of both kind of parties are um kind of I would say both parties are understanding and both parties kind of help off of this or
Yeah, there's only one real key to communication, and that is social awareness. A big part of communication is not saying the right thing, but understanding when to say the right thing. And like I said, we tend to we sometimes we speak more than we listen. And some people that we're communicating with, they are listeners. Some people we communicate with, they are talkers. So knowing that little piece of information, it's good to know that, okay, if this person is a talker, I should probably listen. Or if this person is a listener, I should talk. Because some people want to hear you out, right? You will have your time to talk. You just have to find the right person. And in the workspace, especially when you're new, the greatest thing you can do is listen, because there are people who have been there years before you, right? And you can consume a wealth of knowledge if you just lend your ear, right? You don't like you don't have to go in thinking you know everything, because in reality we don't. And it would be, in a sense, disrespectful and also, you know, counterintuitive to talk more than we listen going into something new, right? Something we have no idea about. That's something, I used to do a lot when I was younger too. I used to think that I knew everything. Yeah. And, what I started doing is just closing my mouth and listen, because people will give you the answers that you're looking for. And I know at a very young age, we're always looking for answers. We don't even know. We're trying to find our identity. So in order to get those answers, you essentially just have to listen. You just have to listen. It's like the best thing you could do to get everything that you need is to listen.
I kind of so when you talk about that, it kind of reminds me of the time when I was trying to help somebody because they weren't communicating correctly, especially in the workspace. I feel like in our society, especially in my generation, I feel like we kind of are very divine and we're very apart when it comes to communicating. And I feel like that kind of deals with the level of kind of technology that plays a part in our society. And there's more people who are not even trying to talk, but not even trying to listen at that point. Well, it's kind of more the older generation who's not trying to listen to the younger people because they feel like they kind of know it all, and then kind of that age kind of shows.
Mhm.
But what I'm trying to say is that more people are not. I feel like that if more people decide that they could listen to someone else, that they can become successful. They just listen, and and especially in the workspace when I was trying to help that the person next to you can be the person who might actually help you become successful just because I mean I hope no one really decides to do a 9 to 5 for the rest of their lives, but I mean some people actually are loving, so we need people in hospitals, we need people and lawyers, we need accountings, we need people who can do that things, and I appreciate everybody who does that. But people who are just working a minimum wage job, I would hope that they would be able to help or try to find their love through the things that they're doing. So I mean, if you're working a job, I would hope that you ask questions to other people that are like customers, because you never know when some millionaire might walk in. You never know when someone who, say, a shoe store, a person who sells shoes might walk in. You might find a person who's a realtor. How do you get people to ask those questions, even in a workspace, to find that next person might be the person that actually might help them? Are there any questions that should be the right questions, or anybody to help them to kind of unlock that gate between talking about some of the stuff that they want to talk about, I guess?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. And I know that, sometimes when we're at a low, not a low point, but we're at the beginning stage. When we're at the beginning stage of our career or doing something new, we tend to think, making those big leaps are essentially risky, right? And you got to remember that if you have nothing, you have nothing to lose. Therefore, it's like the risk mitigation is a lot lower than you think. So, um, I think you should make it easy to take those risks, right? Ask those questions because we think asking those questions to people might get us in trouble or, they might get upset, whatever. Like we have essentially nothing to lose, and going in with that mindset of like, okay, if I ask this question, what's the worst that's going to happen? We tend to, do more than we start thinking. And I guess to get other people to ask those questions, you have to understand like when you are working your way up, that's the only way to progress forward is to ask those people, um, obviously give value, be kind, and ask those people, things that you wish you knew, because you never know when an opportunity is going to pass. You can know that, like, let's say if Jeff Bezos walks into Panera Bread and you're working at Panera, and then, like you have that one opportunity to ask him a question. You never know what he can say will change your life. So that's why you should ask.
I mean, I think that's what I'm trying to achieve, for people to ask those type of questions so that they can actually find out what they might like. And there's people who are out there who can actually help you, but they aren't willing to ask questions. They kind of get in their own head, and that kind of gets me to your kind of thoughts on the most important things to become successful. I kind of want to start off with the first one, which is learn to think independently. When I think about that,
Yeah.
it's oh, you could start.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh,
What do you think about it?
when I think about it, it's like independently. Is there anything that um for like independent? Is there anything that you should say that people shouldn't have like role models, or how do you get to thinking independently?
Well, let's start with this. I know as you grow up, your brain's very raw. Like you don't really have a formulated opinion yet. Especially like even below, like even at 25, like I don't even have, a lot of opinions are still, I'm still working on to formulate those. But you have to remember that social media, school, and family members are like the greatest influences in your life, right? They influence our principles, our morals, and like how we move in this world, right? And that can prevent you from exploring your great ideas. So you always want to be careful of what you consume, because sometimes what you consume can be shit. Excuse my language, but it's true. And in order to think independently, you kind of have to go back and question those things that you were taught. Question those things that you were told that were true. Because unless you have experienced it firsthand or you have proof, then how can you know that's abundantly true? Like how can you know that's exactly true? You don't. So learning to think independently comes from, questioning everything that you pretty much have learned and double checking them to see if they were right.
How do you double check them?
So let's say, well, I'll use this example. Like, let's say that, you see a statistic that says, 50% of Americans, have less than $5,000 in savings, right? Where can you go find that information? You have the internet right in front of you. So what I would do is when I see that statistic, I don't accept it, right? Me being a very curious person, I wouldn't accept that. I'd be like, okay, let me go on the internet and do my own research. So there's little things like that, especially like when people tell you things that are presumed to be facts. Like, for example, that we'll say that high school X is better than high school Y, and the history shows that high school X has more championships than high school Y. But until you actually go back and do your due diligence, you wouldn't know that's true. So a big part of double checking your work is doing your due diligence, and there's plenty of outlets to go figure that out.
I feel like
In terms of, oh, go ahead.
I feel like there's people who wouldn't double check and feel like that everything that they see is right, and there's people who uh I feel like those are the same people who spread rumors. Is there any help for them, or is it kind of the only people who are curious is the only people who kind of double check?
Well, there's this one thing I heard online once from this entrepreneur. He was saying how people have to pay down their ignorance debt. And what that means is that, our whole life, like I said, we're taught these things, and we have to unlearn these things in order to think independently. And the ignorance, that could be something that's passed down from a family member, or what your current environment is. So, for example, let's say money, because money is like the best example you can use. Let's say somebody believes that, okay, you have to go to school, you have to get a 9 to 5 job, you have to make $50,000 a year and pay off your debt for the next 40 years or whatever, and that's the only way that you're able to live in America, right? That's the right way to live in America. But ignorance, the person who learned that was ignorant to the fact that there are multiple ways to make income, and you don't have to be a millionaire, right? In order to live a free life, in a sense. There are plenty of ways to, essentially live without restraint. But going back to ignorance, that it's like you have to, as that's passed on, somebody in the family has to pay that down. So if your parents taught you that notion, you as a person have to unlearn what your parents taught you, come back to the idea, and relearn other avenues where you can make money and essentially become, financially free, or become, your own boss, or whatever the case may be, pay off your debt early, etc. Like, there's little things in life that, you have to unlearn before you relearn them. And part of that is getting to a point where you're like kind of fed up. You're just like, I don't understand why this is. And then you start questioning it. So it comes from a place of emotion. It's like, why is this the way it is? And you have like this emotion that you're feeling, and it connects with your brain. It's like, why is this happening? It starts with the question of why. And then from why, it becomes how.
There's so many people who envy those type of people, because I feel like the type of people like Warren Buffett, the Jeff Bezos, the Elon Musk, they're curious to do those things, and that's why they become so successful, because they're always willing to learn more, 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 more. But there's also people who don't want to do that, and don't want to put in the effort, and don't want to try to do those type of things. And going from that, is there any way for those people to kind of get into the curiosity mindset? Is there any way you would try to get people to ask questions? Or, I mean, going from that other question, is there any way to get those people to become that way, or are they kind of just stuck in that kind of mindset?
Right. I think what's more important is that, it's not that what it's like your willingness to know more. And if people have that willingness, they tend to, eventually and inevitably get to that point where they want to ask those questions and question it. And the only thing that you can do, as a human, is question them. Maybe not their morals and philosophy, but ask them questions, right? You want them to, in order to get somebody to think, and teachers do this all the time at school. It's like, how do you get your students to kind of think? You ask them a question, because they might already have a preconceived answer. And in order to question, order to get them to question themselves, you have to ask those thought-provoking questions. So, in short, the only way you can get people to think like that is to ask them the right questions, or ask them the thought-provoking questions.
All right. Your second quote was get good at sales.
Yes. And when I mean by sales, I don't necessarily mean cold calling, but you need to convince other people of what you believe in order to sell your vision. So when I think of how to sell an idea, I think of three important components. And this has worked for me, so I hope it works for you guys as well. It's that, you have to ask yourself, like, what value does your idea provide for others? How am I helping other people? Why would they want to invest, in my idea? The second part would be the data to support your claim. Like, what data shows that this thing will work for these people and possibly more? Like, where is there room for, a market? Like, where is there room for me to be in this market? And then ultimately, in order for people to believe in your vision, your idea, the most part is like emotion. Like, what emotion do you evoke out of others? Like, what emotion do you elicit? Like, if I'm speaking to someone about an idea and I don't really have much confidence behind it, what makes you think that person will have confidence too? It's the conviction that you speak it's the conviction that you speak behind your words that people will believe in. And that's why they ultimately, listen. That is probably the most important part, is like the conviction. Because if you believe in it enough, that emotion will transfer into the person that you're speaking to, or the crowd, or the group, or the people that you want to connect with. So getting good at sales is more so, eliciting that emotion, like to provoke people to feel a certain way.
Are you doing that in your life, or does that play a big part in your life?
Absolutely. I would say me making these short form videos has helped me, you know, help me express the emotion and help pull the emotion out of people. So when I make these videos, for example, I want people to feel what I'm saying, right? Not necessarily just understand. I want them to understand, obviously, because that's the whole point, is providing value, and value cannot transfer if people do not understand. But I want them to feel it too. I want them to feel that, these things will help them or help others, or they can pass it on to the next person. And by me doing the videos every day, I learned more, little things that people do understand or do, feel for.
How do you
So,
how do you
yes.
think more people could add that, get good at sales in their day-to-day life? Do you think people could, try to do that?
Yeah, I think as a rookie in sales, people tend to speak more because you want to sell people. But what I've learned is that you want to, ask those thought provoking questions, build those relationships. I think the people think I go into sales to sell people, but in reality, going to sales is building those relationships and providing value to those people in hopes, or that will eventually lead to a sale, because you provide so much value that they will eventually need your services at some point. It's just a matter of when. And when impatience comes with, trying to sell somebody, say an idea, or whatever the case, but that impatience will kind of deter you from actually building those really good relationships.
You say make it easy to take risk.
Yeah. So going back to what we talked about earlier, is that, we tend to believe that, a lot of things are risky, and especially when we start from the bottom. And I think it's in reverse. It's like when we're at the bottom, you look around, like you don't have much, you don't have anything, right? There's nothing that you can really lose. And we have the scarce mind, sometimes we grow up with a scarce mindset. So we do believe we don't understand that how easy it is to get back if we develop, that skill or that trade that will allow us to get an abundance of that thing. So for example, like we play a lottery because it's a couple bucks and it seems low risk, but in fact, low risk or no risk limits your ability to win big. And by that, we often have a reserved notion of overestimating risk and underestimating reward.
I mean, I feel like when it comes to risk, the depending on the risk matters, because like, I mean, when it comes to, say, this podcast, kind of risked all the money, all the everything that comes with it to do it. And when it comes to, like, say, stocks, more people are willing to risk it than the kind of the reward. And I feel like it kind of deals with gambling, because it's like, I mean, you spend $1 and maybe you win 1 million, or in stocks, I feel like some people are not even educated to know, some of the details that come with it. And so they just kind of putting it in there and hoping for the best. It, do you mean that type of risk, or is there any other risk that you would take is it more of like a calculated risk?
I'd say a little bit of both. I'd say it's a calculated risk, in terms of, let's say, if you wanted to move to a different state, like for example, like me, I took a stupid risk in a sense, looking back, moving to California with, you know, little to no income and like no job. That was a big risk that wasn't calculated, but I took it because, you know, I wanted to make the risk easy. I didn't think much about it, and the more I thought about it, I felt like it would have prevented me from, it would deter me from making that risk. But going back to your point in terms of the stock market, it's like we essentially depend on other people to make our life easier or make our life abundant. And that's what the stock market does. It's gambling. It's like going to the casino in a sense, because we're putting money into something and betting that it will eventually go up. That's where we put our faith into. It's like believing in God. Like, you know, God will help us, but God also wants you to learn the lessons. I would hope, whoever would want you to learn those lessons as well by you doing them. So by putting, your money into an entity where you have faith in, it's like you have no control over it. And when you have no control over it, and it goes to zero, what are you going to do? Like how are you going to get back what you lost? And that's why I think it's very important to, what you put in, you must be able to reproduce. So if I put in $10 in the stock market, right, that wouldn't make me much money in the long run as me being able to make, me be able to like willingly put $20 in. And when I say that, it's like, how much am I willing to risk, right? If I can put $5,000 in the stock market every week, that means I have a high risk, and that means I can probably recover the money. But if I'm putting $10 in the stock market every week, yeah, no, I might get a small return, but it wouldn't be as much as if I had 5,000. And it's all a gamble. But at the end of the day, it's like, what am I able to recover from that investment or that risk? And if you're able to take those higher risks, right, higher risks to increase the amount of income you can put in the stock market, then you would have no problem recovering if you lost it all.
Do
And
you
that's
feel
why I
like
think it's very important to invest in yourself.
do you feel like risk is another way of saying opportunity?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a great, I like that. Risk is another way to say opportunity. It is, because it is an opportunity. So I would place it like this: with all opportunity comes risk, and there's a scale. High risk, low risk. So it's just on a spectrum. It's literally the same thing, but on two different ends of the spectrum. Like, opportunity is in the middle. Well, opportunity is a scale, and then there's the degree of risk of the opportunity, right?
Mhm.
And obviously your risk threshold, or your threshold of how much you can take or how much you're able to lose, is dependent on you.
Do you feel that people kind of going with the opportunity now, do you feel like more people should wait for opportunities to come to them, or do you feel like people should be opportunity seekers?
Yeah. I think people should be opportunity seekers. I think opportunity comes to those who do, not to those who wait. And I have to say that because every opportunity that I've gotten in my life is because, I've worked my way to get the opportunity, or to be presented the opportunity. It doesn't necessarily mean I took it and it's benefited me, but you know, we have to work our way towards the opportunity, because the opportunity is, we'll say, how they say the opportunity is waiting. So say if the opportunity is up the staircase and you're at the bottom of the staircase, opportunity is not going to come down the stairs, right? You have to work your way towards that opportunity. So that's why they say opportunity comes to those who wait. I completely disagree. I think you have to walk towards that opportunity. And you might not even know what's there or what is there, but it's going to be up there.
And that's so true, because I feel like when you try to opportunity seek, I feel like that you might actually see an opportunity that you not might like, and especially in the workspace. When I think about it, it's become harder because people feel that opportunity seeking is like getting a promotion, in which I feel like a promotion is kind of the worst thing that can happen, because you think it's actually benefiting you, but when you leave, if you leave right now, there's always going to be another person who's going to take your job. And I feel like opportunity seekers, I feel like they kind of think, is it like, I feel like they kind of think differently, and it's like more people should feel that opportunity seeking is like always trying to feel that there's another opportunity, or there's opportunity that you might actually like. And that, when I always tell my people is being an opportunity seeker is like trying to find something, that asking a question and then finding an opportunity that you might actually not think that came from that person. So asking questions and being like, well, you actually do hair? Oh, I didn't know that. And now actually I'm a hairstylist, so I kind of, or I get clients from that. Or I find out someone who likes shoes, but you would never think they like shoes. Is kind of, I feel like an opportunity seeker would find those things that no one knows about them than someone who knows everything about someone. And going to the third one, you say be bold. I feel I kind of took it as like being a follower instead of a leader. How does that play in your part, being bold?
I would have to agree. It has to do with, there's followers and there's leaders. There's leaders and there's followers. And some people just assume the role that they want, and that's fine. But when I say you have to be bold to be successful, going back to my point is we often think we have much to lose, but how can you lose when you have nothing? Be yourself, be bold, because there is a part of you inside that wants to burst outwards, right? We're reserved because of what we're presented. We don't think, we can be ourselves in the environment that we're in. But is it the environment or is it you, right? That's the question you kind of have to ask yourself. So being bold, you have nothing to lose to be yourself. And going back to that book, The Go-Giver, The Law of Authenticity, it's that, the best value you can provide for somebody when you have absolutely nothing is to give yourself. And that goes into play with the law of least effort. You get the best results when you put in the minimal effort with some things, right? With an exception of some things. So being bold, like you have nothing, like think about in terms of, this is my favorite example, like would Kanye West be the person who he is today if he wasn't bold? Would Biggie Smalls be would LeBron or Kobe, be where they were if they weren't bold, like they weren't taking those risks? I think a part of being bold is obviously being yourself, but also being risk, being more inclined to take risk.
And then the last one was be internally driven.
Yes. You must be internally driven, and there must be a why, because nothing external will drive you far enough, and eventually you'll run out of gas. Um, you know, that's kind of something you can't teach. That's something that is within people. Like I said, what drives me are those negative emotions. Take those negative emotions, the raw emotion, that raw energy, you input it into something, and the output becomes something great. And you know, that's something that you can't really explain in depth really to people, because like sometimes it's hard to explain like that feeling that you have, internally
Yeah.
driven. It's like an energy. It's more of like a subjective feeling. Like somebody would literally have to be inside your body to feel
So
it
like
and be.
so like
Yeah.
people talk about how why are feelings, and then when you say what, then that kind of gives people to answer the question. When you ask why, it's kind of people are hard to give an answer back just because why is kind of a feeling type of question. And so how do you go by finding your why?
Well, when I wake up in the morning, I have anxiety. I'm like, things have to get done, and I kind of think back to why, right? I think that's one thing I notice. I get up every morning. I feel like there's like this beating inside of me, and how do I understand where that comes from? Um, Probably by nature and by nature. I think the circumstance I put myself in has, kind of driven me to do that almost always. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing. I wouldn't say it's chronic anxiety or anything like that. And that's okay if you do have that. That's another thing that you can use as an input. However, I think it's like you notice like what are the thought patterns that are in my head that are provoking me to think this way? Like why am I feel like you ask yourself like why am I feeling like this? Like why do I feel anxious when I have to get up in the morning? Because my brain and my body are telling me like there are things that you have to get done. There are things you have to accomplish. And that's going back to a part of being internally driven is having those little reminders, whether they be mental or physical, that kind of get you up and go do those things. So as you get older and you learn your identity and you learn, more about yourself, you kind of realize that those things that, essentially drive you, you kind of learn more of who you are as a person
Do
and
you do you
what
ever
you
feel
want to
like
accomplish.
your why can change?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think that's a great point. I think that, someday what drives me could be, my family, or another day could drive me because of failure. Going back to what you said, going back to what you said, it's like, sometimes the positive things drive us, sometimes the negative things drive us. You can have a really good day and that can, drive you to go do more. Or you can have a really bad day that can also drive you to become better because maybe you messed up somewhere. So I guess to answer your question is that there's always like a different reason why you do things. Like not everything comes from the same reason.
So I don't know if you read the book Simon Sinek. So he has a book that's uh, "Start with Your Why," and he pretty much says that your why never changes and it's inevitably in you. And he says that it kind of never changed. Do you feel that since you feel like that it can inevitably change, do you feel that you don't know your why now? Or do you feel, I mean, like, because if you think about it, some of people's whys are, say, my mom died or my dad died or things,
Mhm.
situations happen. Do you feel that right now you don't know your why? Or do you feel that that was your why all along?
Well, I think it's I would say like why is kind of like an iceberg. You think you ever seen those diagrams where like you have the tip of the iceberg and under the iceberg? I say the why comes like the bottom of the iceberg is the raw emotion, right? You have all those things from childhood you kind of like learn and those things that you're born with that kind of drive you. And then as you go up the layers, you kind of stack on like different experiences that made you feel that why. And as you get above the iceberg, that's like more of your conscious of, you're conscious of those things, right? You're understanding like that's the way you are. In terms of me, I kind of know what drives me, and that's those raw emotions. And I guess it's not necessarily that I don't know, but I think it's that there are multiple reasons why I do things. I don't think there's just one. Like I said before, like making videos on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube, there's multiple reasons why I do that. It's not just one. And part of the reason why is positive, and some of the reason is negative, I would have to say. But going back to it, it's all like layers of self development. Like, why is your drive, which um, provokes or which increases growth?
So the last one is networking, which I think is kind of the most important part that everyone I feel like can benefit off of, and it can get you the opportunities or the risks that you need to take. And so I just kind of want to say this. So the scientists conclude that growing up with smartphones and social media during formative childhood and adolescent years could lead to increased shyness, as Gen Z may have had fewer opportunities to develop social skills, and which may lead to greater social anxiety and shyness. Do you feel that success can happen alone?
No way. No way. I've said this before in like an old tweet. I was like, nobody can do it alone. You essentially have the Avengers on your team. Like you have, you know, there's many people in your network that will help you get to where you want to be. And people think they have to have this extensive network too. But you think about it, as you get older, you lose a lot of friends over time and you kind of gain new ones. But the circle gets smaller and smaller. Like when you're a kid, like you don't really know many people. You go to school, you go to kindergarten, and you kind of create your friend group. And as you get older, it kind of, the circle gets smaller. And as the circle gets smaller, you find out who are the real ones. Who can you provide value to? Who can give value back to you? Like you have that reciprocity in that relationship. And I think you don't need a bunch of people, but you definitely need the Avengers. And by what I say the Avengers is, I'll give you a couple of examples. Like, you need that brawlic go-getter kind of guy that's aggressive in your group because they will get things done. That's the Hulk. Or you need that kind of witty, intelligent guy who's Tony Stark. Or you need, we'll say like that very tactical person like Black Widow. Like you have a bunch of people in your group and they all, everybody fills in the role. And you can obviously be multiple people or you're subject to change to whoever, but I don't think you like networking as like a constant thing is kind of dead. Like you essentially like network when you need to or like inevitably through like your endeavors. I don't think that's something like you need to go out there and find friends all the time because like a lot of people like think about it with going back to your point of technology. It's like technology kind of makes it harder to find real people because we all essentially wear a mask and we put it on as we go online and we want to be perceived in a certain way, right? And that's why it's hard to find, that's why you see trends out there because people are trying to copy trends because they want to be accepted or they want to be known or whatever the case may be. But it's that, you don't need a big circle. Your circle is tight and it's right there, and you know who help you get to where you want to be.
Do you feel that people in people's circle, do you think they should have people who only want to help them for their future? So the business that they want to start, or say if someone wants to become a nurse, do you feel like people should only have nurses in their circle? Or do you feel like people should have friends, so people who kind of help them with their anxiety, depression, or things that they're going with day by day? Say someone, I'm dating a girl, do you think I should have a friend solely to talk about the stuff that we go through? Do you feel like it should be that, or people who actually just help them with, kind of your career?
I think what stimulates growth the most is allocating more of your time to people that essentially provide value to you, but you also provide value too. And there are some people that don't do what you do that also, are in your friend group. It's just a matter of like, you know, where do you think you'll spend your time most when you're busy, right? The people that can help you along the way. But that doesn't necessarily mean you cut out all the people that have helped you get there too. Sometimes the hardest thing is saying no to those people that you have left in the past, right? Um, so it all depends who you are, and it depends where you want to be. And if you're comfortable where you're at in life, then you don't really need to change much. But if you see that all the people around you are not doing the thing that you want to do, then obviously there's a need for change there.
How do you get people to say no more? Because I know I kind of deal with it where I kind of say yes to everything and not knowing kind of the consequences that come with it. So how do you get people to say no more often?
Yeah, I've definitely had a problem with that throughout my life. Is hard. Like I had a problem with that throughout my life is saying no. And I think you have to look back to why you're saying it in the first place. For me, it was because that I didn't want to let anybody down. I had the fear of people, I had a fear of people, what people thought about me. And, eventually you realize like you're working out of the self-interest to others instead of yourself. And you're not really providing much value to them by saying yes to things that you don't want to do and you can't give the most out of what you do for them. So that being said, how do you say no is like you have that epiphany. It's like, you know, am I really providing value to this person? Am I really giving this person anything? I'm just giving them a shallow shell of myself. And it's not the energy that they have earned or deserve in our relationship. And that's where you say no. Also, going back to yourself, you have to realize if you're going to give your best self to other people, you have to do things that will make you better. So that being said, it's like, let's say we're all 21 here and we go out drinking. I don't want to drink, right? But I go out anyways because somebody kind of said, come on, come out. You never come out with us, right? And I feel guilty. I say yes. The next day I wake up and feel bad. That's not going to do anything but strain our relationship because inevitably along the line, you're going to find that, I'm going to be a little bit more distant, or it's like, I'm not going to give them the same energy I would as if like we were doing something that would benefit us both, right? So, sometimes you have to realize that there are things that we often, you know, we often sacrifice. We often sacrifice for other people, but realize we have to make the sacrifice for ourselves first.
I feel like in a lot of that happens kind of in college where more people are kind of doing the, well, can you come out and drink with me, can you go smoke with me, can you do this, can you do that, and it kind of gets a lot of people in trouble. So do you think a lot do you think more people to go to college for that, or big schools just for that, to have the, well, I want to drink, I want to do this, I want to smoke, I want to have this with someone? Do you feel like more people go to college for that, or
I think people go to college for the freedom to do so, to have the option to do what they want. I think that's part of it. Also, because, having options, meaning like you don't know what you want to do in life. So this is an option here. Another option is, and another benefit of going to college is like having the freedom to do those things. And you think about it, it's like college is just one big networking event. You go to school with all the people who are curious about life and themselves and they're trying to learn how to do things. And if you do it the right way, you can get a lot out of it. But also, like, I think about and I look back at college, like the best part I got out of it were the experiences and not really the education themselves. I'm not saying I didn't get a good education in college, but I have to say, like, the best part of it was, playing basketball with my homies, or, going and having fun with my homies as well. And, going through those trials and tribulations with them, because I wouldn't have wanted to through it with anybody else. So through that, I was able to network some of the, good friends that I have today.
Do you think
So it does give you the freedom to do so.
I think some people also get scared with actually networking in college and not feeling like trying to, they kind of get in their own head of trying to not talk to people. So I've always I created this thing where it's you try to meet like 5 new people every week. And to some people, that's a lot. Do you feel that's something good to do?
I think inevitably you do meet 5 people a week if you're out and about, right?
That's true.
but but I think setting a goal for yourself like that is good, because like it caters to what you want to do, not what other people want to do. So why it wouldn't for me at least, it wouldn't matter like if it's good or not. You got to see if it works. It's not because like you don't know if it's good or not if you have never done it before, right? And you can only learn from other people's experiences, and that's where you listen to wise people because they have those experiences. But at the same time, there are some things that you will never understand unless you do it yourself. It doesn't matter how many people you listen to, right? I know I'm a big firm believer on, I don't want to learn from my own mistakes. I want to learn from others. But then I realized it's like, how am I going to learn to be rich if I've never done it before, right? Um, Even if I try to listen to 1,000 people, it's like you have to learn like those little things that they don't teach you. So for you going out and making friends, 5 friends a week, like you don't know how that's going to affect you until like later down the road, you realize like, okay, maybe that's too many people. Maybe I haven't had enough. Maybe I don't want to meet people at all, right? So that's something like you have to experience firsthand in order to actually grasp the idea. And then you will have that contextual experience, right? You'll be able to explain that to other people like, hey, my name's Corey. I went out and I met 5 people a week, and this is how it turned out. This is how it made me feel, right?
Because I feel like more
So
people, especially in our society and being Gen Z, I feel like more people kind of deal with that shyness, and I think it kind of gets blended in with trying to have a relationship with someone or trying to find that perfect partner. And when you say to yourself, "Well, I can't do it," some people can't even have a friend or try to find friends. So even friends are harder than to have or try to get with relationships, and people kind of feel like they're totally apart, but they're really kind of the same thing. If you could find a friend, you could talk to them, you can go up to them, and you can give them a compliment. You could do the same thing with a relationship, giving a compliment, going up to them, saying that they're beautiful, you have a nice dress, you have a nice suit, blah blah blah. And it's kind of, I kind of, that's why I kind of join them, because if you're even willing to go up to 5 people just to give them a compliment and say that they look nice, I feel like that kind of helps with, well, trying to find a relationship, being able to talk, get good at sales, be able to talk to people and kind of break that shell between you and yourself and your thoughts to other people. Because I feel like some people kind of get in their heads with, this person might think this about me, but in reality, if you go up to people, they're actually nice, and if you kind of show your authentic self, that more people draw towards authentic versus fake. And people know when, especially females, people know when fake happens, and that. But I kind of want to close this out with this last question, which I would love. I kind of ask everybody this, and it's very interesting what kind of the answers I get. But I want to close out with this. What do you think the whole point of life is?
wow, that's um, well, first of all, that's a great question. What do you think the whole point of life is? Um, my answer is that's for you to figure out, right? Why are you here? Ask yourself. How are you supposed to know if you don't know? You just go figure it out. That's the biggest thing I guess I learned growing up, is that a lot of things that you seek for, you will never get in hand, because we feel like we're, entitled to it or we should be instantly gratified. But in reality, it's like you have to go out and find it. So the same thing with opportunity, same thing with, finding some things that are risky, but probably worth it. It's like, I think the whole point of life is figuring it out, and everybody has their own interpretation of that. Right. Um, I'd say for me is that to get the most out of life as I can while I'm alive, because I know that today and right now I'm alive, but tomorrow I could be gone, right? And I would probably regret not doing everything that I wanted to do. And one of my favorite Kanye quotes of recent is on his album Graduation. He's like, "Giving up is way harder than trying." Right? And if I give up now, then I will never know the answer to that question.
I feel like more people are solely they give up before they even try just because they get into their own thoughts. Do you feel like how do you get people to try more and not care about the outcomes more than not trying because of the outcomes that they thought?
Well, think about, I guess it's hard. It's difficult to go tell somebody to go do something because like, oh, go do it. Like I'm like, listen, like I don't want to go do that. Like, how are you gonna tell me to go do that? But my thing is like, I would ask that question. It's like, look at where you're at right now and look how you feel. Do you want to look and feel the same as you did today, 20 years from now? Or if you were 80 years old, right? If you're 80-year old, say if I'm 80-year-old Shawn and I look back, would I be happy with my life? Right. And that kind of gets you moving because you think about like, okay, I'm 25 now, but that 25 years flew by pretty fast. And I think every day it gets a little bit quicker. And you realize like you don't have much time. Um, Something I think you should check out, it's pretty cool. There's a bunch of these out there, but it's a chart that tells you how many weeks you have left to live. And you calculate it by putting in your birthday and, the average lifespan of, people. It's kind of insane. It gives you like a calendar and you can print it out and everything and put it on your wall. And it kind of gets you going every day, right? So that's probably one thing I would say, if you really want motivation and if you really find value in your life and you're looking for those kind of answers, print out a calendar of how many weeks left you have to live, and you'll realize like I don't have much, so we got to get it going now.
And most people don't even think about the perspective like that, and that's really good because I'm actually use that. But I just want to thank you for this. Thanks for the opportunity to talk with you. I know you didn't have to answer, but you did. I just want to appreciate that.
Yeah, absolutely, Corey. Dude, I appreciate you allowing me to be on your podcast today. I'm happy I'm the very first guest, and I look forward to seeing more of your episodes in the future. And good luck with everything. You're gonna kill it just by being young and hungry that you are now. If you continue that path and you're consistent with it, you never know what's gonna happen. I couldn't tell you, but I can't wait to see it for you.
Thank you.